that I got to really change my belief about what is possible right before my eyes in the 40 days that I was on the road. So much so, as I said to some people already, is that I kept watching those testimonials over and over again.
Hello and welcome to the Pacific Channel, where we learn about the law of attraction, how to manifest anything you want, meditation, and more. In this video, Dr. Joe Dispenza starts off by talking about the collective consciousness of man and how, despite all of the problems around the world, he still thinks there is hope for humanity. We live in a very diabolical time right now. There are lots of people suffering from war, famine, oppressive governments, tyrannical actions against citizens and farmers everywhere, and the threat of energy and even food being cut off for a lot of us. And yet, at the same time, more and more of us are finding out who we really are and our ability to change reality through the power of our thoughts. What we must first do is understand who we are and the power that we have to create our own reality, regardless of what the globalist governments try to do to take away our freedoms. What the work of Dr. Joe proves is that we no longer have to fear dis-ease. We don't have to buy into the fear-mongering rhetoric and narrative any longer. We are free. You are free. You can heal anything when you know how. One who is connected to source energy is more powerful than millions who are not. When you figure out just how powerful you are to heal anything, then you are free. Then you are no longer dependent upon big pharma or big government trying to keep you safe and healthy. They were never very good at that job anyway. That's the deeper message to what Dr. Joe is saying today. The people who attend his 7-day workshops are getting absolutely incredible, miraculous results. How can westernized medicine deny it? He's able to prove it over and over again. He talks about a blind person being able to see, someone curing their muscular dystrophy, like almost instantly or within 7 days, someone overcoming the symptoms of ALS, a physician of 41 years who healed himself too. And there is one lady who did what almost everyone would say is impossible. Let's listen to Dr. Joe explain all of this now.
There has been such talk over my entire lifetime that we are living in a time where there is the coming of a new consciousness. And, at one point, based on what history has shown us, is that there may be one individual that has an elevated consciousness that, attempts to deliver a message to empower people, that they can connect to God, to connect to source, to connect to oneness, whatever you want to call that. And we're at such a time right now where I'm very clear that the coming of a new consciousness is a collective consciousness. It's that an elevated consciousness is for everybody, and that emergent consciousness allows human beings as a species to begin to behave and function and live in different ways. And that's an exciting time. Something happened to me from a personal standpoint at the end of the week-long event in Niagara Falls that we just had at the beginning of this wonderful month. And the very last coherence healing that we did, and it was building up until that point, caused me to actually have such tremendous hope for us as a species, as human beings, in a time where there's such turmoil and chaos and unpredictability and not a whole lot of hope and leadership around the world. I got very clear at the end of that coherence healing that there is possibility and there is hope for human beings. And I witnessed so many wonderful, wonderful miracles that I got to really change my belief about what is possible right before my eyes in the 40 days that I was on the road. So much so, as I said to some people already, is that I kept watching those testimonials over and over again. Testimonials that really changed what I thought was possible. And becoming conscious of what is possible, that changing of consciousness is becoming aware of a new possibility in the quantum field, and every thought has a frequency. And so as you start witnessing the people healing themselves from blindness, as an example, or I was so moved by someone who changed his health condition that I've never seen, or most physicians or healthcare providers had never seen, or researchers seen something like muscular dystrophy change in 7 days. And watching this young man walk, I watched it over and over again because I didn't want to forget what was possible. I saw someone with ALS that was bound to a chair for years, stand up on his own after one coherence healing. He was never touched. He was never given a drug. He never had any type of surgical intervention. Something happened to him inwardly that changed his ability to be able to move around, and he was convicted and believed that his healing was more possible after that moment, that he could fully heal. The same with the young man with muscular dystrophy. Now he knew, after that experience, he knew. Those wonderful women that were able to see at the end of a week-long event, they all said they never doubted after that point, that they believed in that possibility. I watched a physician, 41 years in medicine, have a large tumor in his spine 21 years ago, and go in for surgery as a doctor, and they put a mechanical stent in there, and he lost a lot of function and sensation in his lower trunk and his legs. He stood up in front of an audience, and after his first coherence healing, he could not stop talking about the amount of love that he felt from that experience. It wasn't something like he was trying to feel love, or somehow the collective group, somehow their energy was love, and he experienced it. They connected him to their energy, and he kept talking about how much love he felt from the event, from that moment, from that experience. And I had to remind him that the audience was waiting for the outcome of what happened in three-dimensional reality, and he was walking around again with so much more sensation in his body as a side effect of that one moment that brought him out of the past into the present moment, and he experienced wholeness in his body. His body got some type of upgrade. 41 years as a emergency room doctor, where nothing else was working for him. It wasn't matter that was going to change matter. Somehow energy was informing matter. Those type of things that the collective becomes aware of, you and I. The audience was witnessing truth right before their eyes. Now, that possibility in the quantum field, the thought that it's possible, that healing is possible, produces a frequency or an energy. We become conscious of another possibility. We change the energy of the quantum. That's a different signal in the field. And collectively, when enough people do that, and they're aware of that consciousness, that idea that something could actually change when they change the way they think, act, and feel, and they could actually get back to wholeness and order, is not just speculation. It's just not philosophy any longer. There's evidence right before their eyes. There's a change in consciousness, and I had so much hope at the end of Niagara Falls when I watched people. I watched them during their walking meditations with a crutch or a cane. I watched them every single time they were out there. They certainly could have stayed in their room and excused themselves because of their limitation or their handicap, but they showed up, and that means they must have believed something was possible. Their journey wasn't really like, this doesn't work, I give up. They were always looking to see what if I could change something about myself. If I change, then something should change within me. So their emphasis wasn't on healing, their emphasis was on change. And they had their moment during that last coherence healing. And I watched one man who I watched the whole week saunter up the center aisle at the end of that coherence healing and drop his crutch off and hand it to me and walk back with very, very little limitation. I watched a young girl make their way up, and same thing, very moved by some experience. And another person after that had some type of limitation, possibly a stroke, who I watched all week long walk up and walk back normally. I had such hope for us as human beings that I was so excited about what we're capable of, what's possible for all of us. And I always watch those scenes over and over again in my mind, or at least in their testimonials, because I don't want to forget. It's so easy to be programmed and to forget how unlimited we actually really are. And each one of those events had changed my belief in what's possible. And I was we're doing a documentary on our research just because enough people now want to hear about it. We have enough evidence to say that this is possibly a scientific evidence that shows it could be the truth. In the middle of this documentary, they were telling me a story of a person. I didn't even know that this actually happened, where she had her thyroid removed completely because of a condition. And this woman actually grew her thyroid back, and all of her hormone markers, all her thyroid markers were all within normal limits again. And I was so shocked when I heard that. When I heard that was possible. Like I never, and I didn't really consider as being a possibility that was within the reach of something that I would be aware of in my lifetime. And there's medical scans and everything to support it. Now, that brings me to the idea that the veil is thinning between worlds, that what we thought was impossible, or we were unaware of or didn't perceive, just didn't really exist for us. But now it's that veil is thinning because the change in consciousness, the change in the awareness of what's possible, is changing the frequency and the energy of the very field that we're connected to, and it brings those possibilities closer to us. And it felt like the door widened for our community in Niagara Falls, and many of my staff and many of the volunteers and meditation assists and all that were there as research were fascinated with that incredible change that took place for so many of us. And as the veil thins, we begin to become aware that there's a whole lot more to reality than we're actually perceiving with our senses. That many of those people, by their interaction with energy and frequency, and them striving to connect to it or surrendering to it or whatever their process was, that event put them in a new body. Somehow they got some type of upgrade in their body by their interaction with that energy. They were in a new life. They are walking down the street again. They're in a new body. They're in a whole new life, a whole new reality, a whole new environment, a whole new dimension in time, and they're in a whole new future than the future they were headed for if they didn't have that experience. And the mathematics always suggest, if you look at it, that the reality that we're perceiving is very limited. We're perceiving 1% of the broad spectrum of what exists and what we can measure as reality. And it just happens to be the frequency or the wavelength of light. And that light is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. It's the spectrum of the rainbow. And the light compressed together, of course, makes white light. And yet if there is no light, there's darkness, and there's contrast, and there's shades and all of that. And light is bouncing off of everything that is material in three-dimensional reality. The most stable form of energy is matter. So as light bounces off of all these objects and things and places in our life, and we become aware that we're in a body local in space and time, then it makes sense then that as we look out into the three-dimensional world, we appear with our senses to be separate, and our senses allow us to pick up frequencies, sound, light, whatever it is, pressure. It's all information that's traveling through the nervous system back to the central processing area called the brain. Well, if you look further to see what scientists are looking at and studying the algorithms are, they're saying the probability of this being a simulation, like a virtual reality experience, is very, very high. That when we look at matter, we're seeing a symbol that our brain could actually process, but that isn't the entire information that object or that thing is giving us. We're perceiving with our senses just the symbol of it, that is that stable form of frequency that has a consciousness called matter. And so the other 99% of the frequencies that exist that we're unaware of is indigenous and is made up of both within matter and all around matter. It's a field around it as well. And so as we begin to interact with frequencies and energies, and we begin to entrain our nervous system back to more order, that veil that exists between our perception of what's real and the other 99% of possibility that we're unaware of, causes us on some way, shape, or form to see or perceive a greater aspect of reality. And so what an amazing time for all of us to live in, because what we're asking our community to do on a regular basis is to become aware of a possibility that exists as a potential in the quantum field that you...
So a woman had her thyroid removed, and then she grew another one back. Let that sink in for a moment. A woman who had her thyroid cut out of her body regrew another one. Now, if that doesn't blow your mind, nothing will. And Dr. Joe said that they have all of the supporting medical scans to prove it. And when he says that they have the evidence, they have the evidence. I've heard from the law of attraction teacher Abraham that if you lost an arm, you're so powerful that you could regrow another one if you believed it. But most of us don't believe that that's even possible. When people start to wake up to the power that they have within themselves to truly create whatever they want, everyone will be able to start to do it. We won't need any help from AI. We'll be able to manifest a new body part from the quantum field of energy. We'll be able to do it ourselves. And like Dr. Joe said, when others witness these so-called miracles, which are only miracles if you don't believe it's possible, when others see it's possible, they'll be able to do it too. Qigong masters removed a 3-inch tumor from a woman in under 3 minutes, but I've never heard of them regrowing a new body part. As Dr. Joe said, we are only experiencing about 1% of reality. What is the other 99% all about? The advantage to healing yourself and doing this work yourself is that you aren't dependent upon a doctor or a Qigong master, a Reiki healer, or an EFT practitioner. When someone else does it for you, what it means is that whatever it was might come back. But when you learn how to raise your vibration to the new level of thinking and being, no one can take that away from you. Now is an amazing time to be alive. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. And now, in the comments below, let us know what you think about human potential. Have you ever seen a miracle happen in your life? If you have, what was it? Thanks for watching and have a great day or night.